Brent Lawson returned to the Amish farm expecting to see a ruined field. Instead, he watched Eli Byler push a steel probe into the ground with one hand. The rod disappeared 17 inches into dark, soft soil. Brent tried the same thing in the field across the road. The probe stopped after 5 inches. He leaned his full weight on it, but the hard clay would not let it go deeper. 10 months earlier, Brent had brought a $200,000 tractor to this same place. He had offered to pull a deep ripper through Eli's land and break the hard ground with 7 heavy steel shanks. Eli had refused. Then the Amish farmer had planted radishes. Now young corn stood straight on Eli's side of the fence. Across the road, the leaves on Cole Mercer's corn were curled from the heat, and cracks ran through the soil like broken glass. Brent pulled the probe from the hard ground and looked at Eli. "What did those roots do down there?" Eli opened his hand. Dark soil fell through his fingers in small, soft pieces. "They opened doors your machine could not keep open." Want to know what happens next? Subscribe now and stay with us. To understand why a farm equipment dealer stood speechless in that field, we need to go back 10 months to late August in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Eli Byler was 48 years old. He lived with his wife, Anna, and their 4 children on a 48-acre farm that had been in his family for 3 generations. Eli belonged to an old order Amish church district. He used horses in the field and did not connect his house to the public electric grid. Still, he accepted useful ideas that fit his way of life. The worst part of his farm was a 12-acre field north of the barn. Everyone called it the North 12. After rain, water stood on the heavy clay. After 2 hot weeks, the same ground became hard enough to bend a shovel. Corn roots grew sideways, while wagon wheels pressed the wet soil tighter. Eli had fought that ground for years. 6 years earlier, he had paid a custom operator to pull a deep ripper through the North 12. For one season, the field seemed better. Then the wet spring returned. Heavy loads crossed the same places. The clay settled, and the hard layer came back. Eli had paid for the ground to be opened once. He was still paying the small bank loan after the opening had closed. After an early silage harvest in August, the North 12 had the farm's weakest crop. Eli walked the rows with a shovel and found short roots trapped above a hard layer. He brought a block of clay to the kitchen and placed it beside Anna's account book. "That came from 10 inches down," he said. Anna touched it with one finger. "It feels like a brick." The roots think so too. The farm could pay its bills, but not survive another large mistake. Their daughter needed dental work, and the barn roof leaked. 3 days later, Brent Lawson drove into the lane with a long trailer behind his pickup. On the trailer sat a late-model red tractor with tires taller than Eli. Behind it was a deep ripper with 7 curved shanks. Brent was 51 and owned Lawson Agricultural Equipment. He believed almost every soil problem had a steel answer. Cole Mercer came with him. Cole farmed 200 acres across the road and had already hired Brent's machine for the following week. "This is what your North 12 needs," Brent said. 250 horsepower and enough weight to hold the shanks down. Eli looked at the tractor. "How much does it weigh?" "A little over 30,000 pounds with the front weights." "And it fixes compaction?" Brent smiled. "It breaks compaction." The tractor was worth almost $200,000. Brent offered a season package covering transport, an operator, lime, and deep ripping across Eli's problem fields for $19,800. Cole slapped one of the giant tires. "You cannot pray hard clay loose, Eli." "I was not planning to." Brent unfolded the estimate. "This price is good until Friday. After that, the machine goes to another county." Eli knew the 7 steel points could tear channels. His question was, what would happen after rain and another heavy load? "Will it stay open?" Eli asked. "Nothing stays open forever." "Then I would be buying the same answer twice." Cole laughed. So what will you use? A garden fork? Eli folded the estimate and handed it back. Brent's smile disappeared. You are refusing a machine built for this exact job. I am refusing the bill until I understand the ground. As Brent loaded the tractor, Cole told him not to worry. After another poor harvest, Eli would call and pay whatever the job cost. That evening, Eli walked the fence line around the North 12. Near an old gate, a wild dock plant grew from the hardest part of the field. Its leaves were wide and healthy, even though no rain had fallen for 12 days. Eli dug around it. The first 6 inches were dry. Below that, the plant's thick root passed through a narrow crack in the clay. Smaller roots followed it deeper than Eli could reach with his hand. His father, Amish, had once told him that a root never asked the soil for permission. It found a weak place, entered it, and made the weak place wider. Eli carried the plant to the barn. The next morning, he visited Miriam King, who managed a local seed business. She showed him a sack marked "Forage Radish." The seed looked too small to challenge anything. Miriam explained that it was related to daikon radish. It made broad leaves and a thick white taproot that could push through shallow, compacted layers. It is not magic, she warned. If the clay is dry as stone, the roots may fork or stop. Planting time matters. Moisture matters. And it will not repair every deep problem in one season. What happens after winter? A strong freeze kills most of it here. The root softens and breaks down. What is left is a channel for water, air, and the next crop's roots. Eli held a handful of seed. A drill that grows. A living drill, Miriam said. But even a living drill needs a good start. Seed, oats, and straw for 12 acres would cost about $680. It was not free, but it was far less than $19,800. Eli went home with 6 sacks. 2 days later, he hitched 2 Belgian horses to a ground-driven seed drill. Anna helped him set the shallow planting depth. Their son spread straw over the hardest wagon tracks where the soil had no cover. Cole stopped his pickup beside the fence. "Brent says you turned down the ripper." "I did." Cole looked into the drill. "What are you planting this late?" "Radishes?" For a moment, Cole thought Eli was joking. Then he began to laugh. "You have 12 acres of concrete, and your answer is salad." The next morning, Brent heard the story. By noon, people were calling the North 12 Eli's vegetable garden. Rick Dalton, the custom operator who had ripped the field 6 years earlier, drove past while Eli finished planting. "You should have called me," Rick shouted. "Those little roots will turn around when they see that clay." Eli looked at the seed disappearing into the ground. Then, they will know how the corn felt. The first rain came 4 days later. It was not gentle. Nearly 2 inches fell in less than an hour. Water gathered in low places. The bare clay turned smooth, then dried into a hard crust. 7 days after planting, green leaves appeared in the softer parts of the field, but the old wagon tracks remained almost empty. In several low spots, the seed had washed together in narrow lines. Eli had expected a green field. Instead, he had green patches separated by strips of brown clay. Cole stopped again. "Your salad has holes in it." Brent came the following day and pushed a pocket knife into one bare track. The blade barely entered. "The tractor is still nearby," he said. "You have time to change your mind." Eli dug up 3 young radishes. One had a straight root. The other 2 had forked sideways above the hard layer. Brent held up the worst one. "There is your living drill." It hit the ground and broke into 2 directions. Eli took the plant back. "It is showing me where the problem is strongest. It is showing you that roots are not steel." "No, they are alive. That means I can help them start again." But when Brent left, Eli did not feel certain. He had spent money the family needed. Half the field looked weak, and there would be no third chance before winter. That night, Anna found him at the kitchen table with a map of the North 12. "Do you still believe the idea is right?" she asked. "The idea may be right, and my planting may be wrong. Those are not the same failure." Eli marked every bare strip on the map. Most followed the old wagon lanes, or the places where rain had sealed the surface. The seed had failed where the crust blocked air, or the storm left it too deep. If you have ever watched a good idea struggle on its first try, subscribe to the channel. What Eli did next was not dramatic, but it changed everything below the surface. The following morning, Eli used a light horse-drawn harrow to scratch the bare strips. He only broke the crust. He set the new seed no deeper than half an inch and mixed it with oats to cover more soil. Before the next rain, Eli spread straw over the worst tracks to protect the topsoil. The second planting cost another $148. Anna wrote the amount in the account book. The full experiment had now cost $828. "If it works," she said, "do not tell people it cost nothing. I will tell them it cost less than being wrong with a large machine." A soft rain came 2 nights later. Within 6 days, small green leaves filled the old wagon tracks. They were younger than the first plants, but they were even and healthy. September stayed warm. The leaves spread until they covered most of the soil. The shade kept the surface cooler, and rain no longer struck the clay directly. Every Sunday afternoon, Eli recorded what he saw in a small notebook. He measured 10 plants in the soft ground and 10 in the old wheel tracks. He checked soil moisture with the same narrow spade, always at the same depth. The plants in the softer rows grew faster, but the second planting slowly closed the difference. Anna asked why he spent so much time measuring plants that would die in winter. "Because memory changes when people want an idea to win," Eli said. "Numbers do not." He also left one narrow strip without radishes. It looked wasteful, but it gave him a fair comparison. If the whole field improved, he needed to know whether roots caused the change or whether the weather had simply helped every acre. The untreated strip would later become the most important part of his test. That choice turned his field from an experiment into something other farmers could examine fairly. Under the leaves, the roots began their quiet work. A steel shank opens ground by force. A radish tip enters small cracks. As the root thickens, it presses them wider. Fine roots travel beyond the white taproot. One radish cannot change a field. Thousands can create thousands of small paths. By early October, white shoulders began to rise above the ground. Cole pulled one near the road. It was as thick as his wrist and almost 14 inches long. The lower end was thinner and disappeared into the clay. "A large vegetable," he said. "Still not a tractor." Eli cut the radish lengthwise. The center was firm and wet. "The tractor leaves when the job is done," Eli said. "This keeps working day and night." Brent returned with Rick and chose a plant from one of the hardest tracks. When Eli dug it out, the thick root was only 8 inches long. It had split into 3 strong branches. Rick smiled. "Just like I said, it could not go through." Eli placed a narrow spade beside the hole and lifted a block of earth. Beneath the thick white root, several fine roots continued through cracks in the clay. "The large part stopped," Eli said. The smaller workers did not. Eli did not claim victory. He needed to know whether the channels would remain after winter. In November, Eli dug 4 test pits. He compared the radish field with an untreated strip beside the fence. Untreated clay came out in hard blocks. In the planted field, roots held smaller pieces together, and earthworms moved under the straw. Anna pushed a thin wire into one root path. It went deeper than the white radish had grown. "So the root is not only the part we can see," she said. "Most useful things are larger than the part people notice." The first hard freeze came in December. The green leaves collapsed. By January, the North 12 looked brown and flat. Cole drove by after a warm winter afternoon and smelled the plants beginning to break down. "Now your field smells like rotten cabbage," he called. Brent said Eli had spent fall growing vegetables and winter letting them rot. Rick said he would call for the ripper before spring. Eli did not call. The smell was unpleasant, but the dead plants covered the ground and fed soil life. As the radishes broke down, they left holes in the clay. Water and air entered those holes. Worms and new roots could follow. In late March, a storm dropped 1.5 inches of rain overnight. Cole's field across the road had been left almost completely bare. Water stood in the tractor tracks until afternoon. On the North 12, water gathered for less than an hour, then began to disappear. Eli moved the dead leaves aside. Some radish holes were open like cups. Others had collapsed into dark soil. Water poured into one hole vanished below the surface. He asked Laura Bennett, an independent crop advisor from the next county, to test both the radish area and the untreated fence strip. Laura sold neither tractors nor seed. She had nothing to gain. She used a soil probe and a simple metal ring that held a measured amount of water over one area. In the radish plot, the probe reached about 17 inches before strong resistance. In the untreated strip, it stopped near 5 inches. 2 inches of water entered the planted soil in 8 minutes. In the untreated clay, a similar amount still had not disappeared after 47 minutes. Laura repeated the test 3 times. "This does not prove every layer is fixed," she said. "But the shallow compacted zone has more openings and better water movement." Eli nodded. That was all he needed the result to say. Brent was less impressed when Laura told him. "Spring soil is soft," he said. "Wait for summer." So they waited. Eli planted corn with a horse-drawn planter. A narrow opener moved through the residue into moist soil. In 2 patches, Eli stopped to clear wet residue. He marked them for a different cover mixture next year, but most of the field opened with less pull than it had needed in years. Across the road, Cole planted after Brent's tractor, and Ripper prepared his ground. The field looked clean and smooth. For several weeks, Cole's corn and Eli's corn grew at almost the same rate. Cole leaned over the fence one morning. "Maybe we both solved it." "Maybe," Eli said. Then June brought 2 tests no farmer could control. First came a storm faster than either field could absorb. Water ran from Cole's smooth soil in brown sheets. It collected at the bottom of the slope and carried fine clay into the ditch. The North 12 also had runoff, but dead oat stems and radish leaves slowed it. Old root channels took in more water. When the storm ended, Cole's field had a thin sealed crust. Eli's surface remained covered and rough. Then the rain stopped. For 23 days, the county received almost nothing. Afternoon temperatures moved into the 90s. The clay dried and tightened. Cracks opened between Cole's corn rows. The ripped channels made by the steel shanks had settled after the heavy rain. In some places, the soil closed around them. Cole's corn leaves began to roll by midday, trying to save water. Eli's surface also dried, but moisture remained below the residue. Corn roots followed old radish paths through the hard layer. The plants were not perfect, and they still needed rain. Yet their leaves stayed open longer each day because the roots could reach water that had entered during the storm. This was the morning when Brent returned. Cole had asked him to inspect the fields. Brent expected the dry weather to have made both equally hard. In Cole's field, the probe stopped near 5 inches. In the North 12, Eli pushed it to 17. Brent tried for himself. Then Laura repeated the water test and cut a narrow soil wall with a spade. Everyone could see pale corn roots traveling down the dark lines where radishes had grown months before. Cole broke a dry block from his field and pressed it between both hands. It remained hard. Eli lifted soil from the North 12. It broke into small pieces around old roots and wormholes. "What did those roots do down there?" Brent asked. "They opened doors your machine could not keep open," Eli said. Brent looked toward his tractor parked beside the road. For the first time, he did not defend it. "The machine opened the ground faster," he said. "Yes, but your roots stayed after the machine would have gone home." "That was the hope." Cole removed his cap. "How much seed did you use?" Eli explained the seed rate, timing, first failure, and second planting. Radishes alone, he said, could not solve deep compaction caused by repeated heavy traffic. "Then what do I do?" Cole asked. "Keep heavy wheels off wet ground when you can. Change where you drive. Keep the surface covered. Give living roots more months in the field. The radish is one tool, not the whole toolbox." Brent listened carefully. 2 weeks later, Brent held a soil day at his dealership. Beside the machines, he placed 3 clear soil boxes. One held bare compacted clay. One held soil opened by steel. The third held soil crossed by old root channels. He asked Eli and Laura to explain. More than 60 farmers came and watched water move through the rooted soil. Rick Dalton stood at the back until the demonstration ended. "I said the little roots would turn around," he told Eli. "Some of them did. And some kept going. Enough of them." That fall, Cole planted forage radish and oats on 30 acres. He did not sell his tractor. He simply stopped asking one machine to solve every problem on the farm. Brent began including cover crop information with his estimates. When a field needed mechanical help, he recommended it. For shallow compaction and bare soil, he told farmers about Eli's North 12. Eli did not become rich. He reduced erosion, helped rain enter the ground, and made the next crops work easier. The following summer, the North 12 produced Eli's best corn on that farm in 9 years. After harvest, Anna opened the account book. The cover crop experiment, including the failed strips and second planting, had cost $828. The dealer's original estimate was still folded in the back of the book. $19,800. Anna placed the 2 numbers side by side. "Should we throw this estimate away?" Eli shook his head. "Keep it. It reminds us to understand a problem before buying the largest answer." The $200,000 tractor had been powerful. It could pull steel through ground that a horse team could not move. Eli never said otherwise, but power and permanence were not the same thing. A steel blade could open the ground once. A living root could teach it to stay open. And the strongest tool on Eli's farm was the one that grew while he slept. If this story moved you, subscribe now and join us for the next one.